Hi guys! I just want to say first of all, it is really hot in Paris at the moment, or maybe that's me, I don't know, could be me, but I am really hot and I'm sweaty and I hate this weather. But anyway, today I wanted to come and talk to you guys. I actually really want... Oh, I have to show you this. Where is it? Isn't that the cutest thing? One of my mom's neighbors actually did it. My mom asks for it because she knows I love minions. One of the things a lot of people don't understand about me, and I actually do not really understand it fully about myself either, but I love minions. I have like a watch, I have panties, I have shirts, I have 2 of those, and I probably have other things actually. Yeah, I have a notebook. I mean, I have many things. I love minions. I don't know why, but actually I tend to love everything that's kind of cute and weird and creepy at the same time and round. If that's round, I'm gonna like it. But anyway, we're not here to talk about minions, even though that's quite a nice topic. No, today I'm here to tell you about what's been happening and what's been going on in my life for a year or so, those competitive exams. So it might not be interesting for all of you, but I feel like, it explains a lot of things, you know, the things I've been feeling, the things I've been posting, or why I haven't been posting a lot as well. It also explains you a lot about my future and everything, and it's also a lot, I mean, it's related to friends and, you know, things I strongly believe in and some of my values, and I wanted to share it with you. To be honest, I also felt like I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it like with emotions and honesty, and yeah, I like to do that better in English. I am going to talk about all of that, I think, probably in French at some point, but it makes me feel very vulnerable. So yeah, I'm gonna explain it, and in case you're interested in France, or in case you're just interested in teaching in, or you know, just, yeah, education systems in the world, I think could be interesting for you, perhaps. So, I'm just gonna go from really the basics and just explain you all that I know almost about it. So, as far as I can remember, I've always wanted to become a teacher. I've always wanted to become either a teacher or a psychologist, and ultimately I kind of gave up on the idea of teaching, and I'm not quite sure why. I think I just got in a stage in my life where I got really interested in psychology and I really wanted to work in psychology. I actually wanted to work in prisons, or I wanted to work with sex offenders. And so after high school, I went to university. For my first year, I chose psychology. Everyone was fucking surprised, like my teachers and people working at high school. Everyone thought I was gonna go into literature, and I did not. And that was probably one of the biggest mistakes in my life, but you know what? It just so happened. I am definitely not the only one, I think, who made, you know, a bad decision, or who just thought something was what I wanted to do and in fact it was not. I feel like it's a recurring theme when we talk about university, and it's also actually something that could be dealt with a lot more efficiently if we were more prepared for university when we're in high school, but that's another topic. So after, you know, changing courses, changing subjects and everything, I finally ended up in literature and linguistics, and after years of studying, which I absolutely loved, I got my master's. So I have a master's in literature, a full master's, if that makes any sense, like the full 5 years, and I have 4 years in linguistics. And I have loved those 2 masters, really. I really enjoyed them. Obviously, I enjoyed a lot more the literature one because it was so interesting, so stimulating, so eye-opening, and I just loved it. Honestly, I loved it so much, and it was a wonderful experience. So in the linguistics masters, we had to choose either we wanted to be like more research oriented, or if we wanted to be more in the practical thing and teach, which was what I wanted to do. So I had internships, and I also had to learn about, you know, how you teach and how you behave in a classroom, and what kind of students there are, and what kind of exercises, and what kind of tests, and all those different things, which are, in my opinion, very important if you want to teach. Now, like everything on earth, I feel like there are exceptions. Some people are just natural, they're born good teachers, they're born artists, they're born this or that, and some people just have to enhance it, or some people have to work more on it, some people have a feeling of it, and it's fine, it's just fine. But generally speaking, I feel like it is something you have to learn. Not only is it something you have to learn for the students, but it's also something you have to learn for yourself, because when you have no experience in teaching, when you have no knowledge in what teaching is like, and you are faced for the first time with a class of students, it can be a really painful or really traumatizing or really difficult to handle situation. Really difficult situation to handle. So, yeah. So I had the experience of teaching. I taught to adults, I taught to teenagers. Like, actually my student range age-wise was like 15 to, I think it was 71. I had students who were learning French. I also had, very rarely, but some students that were more focusing on, you know, entering university and wanted to learn how to write essays, commentaries, analysis, summaries, all those things. I had very different types of students, very shy ones, very dynamic ones. I had different nationalities, and I definitely could notice the differences in how you learn and how you behave in a classroom depending on your culture, depending on your upbringing, and a lot of different things. And I actually love teaching even more after teaching. So I have been teaching now, I think, for about 3 years. And I know it's not a lot. I know it's just the beginning. And maybe in 10 years, if I keep on teaching, I'm going to be really tired and done with teaching. That could really be the case. Who knows? And I have a lot of things to learn, and I have a lot of things to improve and discover. And I am excited to learn and improve and discover all of these things. But I can safely say that I love teaching, that I am okay, at least, at teaching. I like to think I am good at teaching. That's at least what all of my students gave me, like the feedback. It doesn't mean it's perfect, but it means it works for them, and I really try my best, actually. I do try my best, all of my heart when I teach. I naturally wanted to become a literature teacher on top of being a French teacher. Now I love studying, and I also just really want to get a master's in gender studies. Who knows, maybe, fingers crossed, it can happen soon. But for linguistics, you do not have in France to go through either a PhD or a competitive exams or any sort of things. You have your master's, a school hires you, you're good to go. But for all of the subjects, like the regular subjects, let's say if you want to teach literature, if you want to teach math, if you want to teach science, history, geography, whatever, in France it is always the same. You have to go through a competitive exam. And I know it is not the case in every country in the world. In France, the way it works is you have 2 types of competitive exams. I mean, 3 types. If you think of like primary school, it's a different thing. But if you think of high school, middle school, and university, it is 2 competitive exams. One of them, it's called le CAPES or le CAFEP. It is for private religious schools. Is said to be easier. It is definitely easier. It's a lot more realistic. It's a lot more humane in the way it is made and thought. And basically what it is you have you have 2 written exams. If you succeed on those 2, you get to 2 oral exams, and if you succeed, you have 1 year of internship. You're teaching half of the time, and then you have class on teaching the other half of the time, and then at the end of this year there is, you know, like an examination, I suppose, and whether if you succeed at this examination of how your class goes and your capacities and everything, you become a teacher and you are part of the national education system. That's how it works. And at the end of that, you can submit your wishes or your desires to go to either region or schools or whatever, and ultimately you are not the one to choose. So that's another subject. So I tried to go through this exam this year. So I went through the written parts, I passed, and I am this weekend actually going to attend, to try to pass the oral part of this exam. Now, I have nothing against this exam. It is very much realistic, it is doable, it's manageable, it is logical, and in both the written and the oral exams you have some parts that are about teaching, like how do you teach, how do you organize a class, what kinds of exercises would you do, and stuff like this. So it is not perfect, in my opinion, not perfect, but it's okay, it's all right. The other competitive exam, which I also did this year, is called L'Agrégation. And this one is just shit, in my opinion, if I'm honest with you. It's just really shitty. It is unrealistic. It is extremely demanding, extremely time-consuming. It is very elitist, what's the word? You understood me, right? You have so many books. Just to give you an idea, I had 12 books that I had to know almost by heart. You have grammar, you have style, you have ancient French, you have Latin, you have a foreign language, then you have comparative literature, which is just like foreign literatures, and then you have French literatures, and you have some of the tests were up to like 7 hours, just to give you an idea of how ridiculous it is, in my opinion. The level is very high, the expectations are very high. And this test, however, has nothing to do with teaching. Like, there is no moment at all, whether it's in the written part or the oral part, when they ask you about what do you think a good exercise is? What would you suggest for a student that's perhaps, I don't know, shy or who has issues or difficulties with this part or this part of the program? How do you think you would put up the grammar in the class? What kind of methods would you use to, test the creativity of the students? There is nothing, like absolutely nothing. And basically, it is just about how much you can memorize and how much you can look like a professional, and you're good to go. And that's about it. And it is extremely problematic because it is extremely, financially, it is very difficult. Like, it is such a difficult competitive exam that you have to almost give up on everything to study a year with very little chances to actually pass the exam. So I could not do this myself. So I had to work and to also study for those two competitive exams. Let me tell you, it was a difficult year. On top of that, there is also something else that's quite problematic in my opinion. It's just the number of jobs. So I don't know how it works in other countries, but in France, basically, at each, I don't know when exactly in the year, but the French government gives the numbers, how many jobs are available for this and this subject. So to give you an idea, this year in literature, when it comes to l'agrégation, there were 119 places and 119 jobs available, while more than 1,000 people actually registered to the exam. And it is really problematic because in France, like many countries I believe, we have more and more students in the classroom. We have less and less teachers, and yet the numbers of jobs available for these competitive exams keep becoming lower and lower. It's just a disastrous situation. Not only are we reducing the numbers of teachers, the numbers of helps and stuff like this in the people like this rather in schools, but we are also putting in schools people who have never heard about teaching methods or how to behave in the classroom or how to put up a test together and all those different things. And it's very, in my opinion, it's so unfair to know that I have the experience of teaching, that I know how to organize classrooms, that I know how to deal with students, that I know the methods, I know how to put up like a full program and stuff like this. And this has never been taken into consideration when examining my my qualifications and my capacities. And this has been what's happened in my life at the moment. It's been a really difficult situation because Financially, I am a bit struggling because the job that I have now as a teacher, because it's a French teacher job and it's not something that you go through this competitive exam and it's not related to the national system. I mean, you don't have like the same incomes and you don't have the same job conditions, and it's just very, very hard financially and also just mentally. And so I have the financial pressure, and because of the financial pressure, I could also not, give up on my job to study fully and devote myself to those two competitive exams, which, I mean, I know life is unfair, but, it's just unfair when it comes to that. Then it doesn't make any sense from like a teaching point of view, especially because, a lot of those new teachers that, just pass the test the first or 2 years that they work, they are sent to the difficult high school or difficult middle schools when, I mean, they don't have any experience because, first of all, they're new, but also because before at uni, or they didn't have any class about teaching, about pedagogy, and that's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. It is so unfair to the students and so unfair to the new teachers as well. That's just the system in France. And the one thing that also just makes me so mad is PhDs. So basically, I do want to be a teacher. I love teaching. I've taught to adults and I've taught to teenagers, like I said, and I love it. It's fine, no worries. But one thing I really want to do is research. I want to do a PhD. I have an idea for a PhD and I would love to do that. And I loved writing my 2 dissertations. I loved it. I had good results. The teachers loved them. Yet, in France and in literature, that's something to really say. In literature, I mean, usually in humanities, but mostly in literature and philosophy, you have very little PhDs that are paid by the universities. When you go to science, it's a whole different story. That's something that really pisses me off. So I have the pressure of that, like it's a dream of mine to actually do a PhD. But if I want to do a PhD that's paid by the university, which is clearly just the only option for me because I don't have money, simple as that, I need to have l'agrégation, which doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And France is the only country that has l'agrégation. Other countries have different systems, different competitive exams, different masters. France is the only country that still has l'agrégation, and it's such an old-fashioned way to look at it, and I am so pissed off because there are so few people actually that speak up against it, because when you get it, you're so proud of yourself, you're so happy, you feel like you're so special, so you don't say anything anymore. And it just doesn't make any sense to me, and it's so against the values of teaching, in my opinion. And I feel like if you dare say anything against it, you'll lose anyway, because even if you have it and you say something against it, even if you pass l'agrégation and you're like, I actually don't think it's a good thing, I actually don't think it's a very efficient way to test future teachers and stuff, people are not gonna take you seriously, or people are gonna, just disregard what you have to say, and they're also gonna discredit you because they're like, yeah, okay, so why did you go through it if you don't think it's a good thing? But then if you either don't want to go through it, or if you fail, people are just, assuming that you're bitter or that you didn't have enough knowledge or capacities to pass, and that's why you're so bitter. And I feel like it's a vicious circle in France, and it's actually something that creates a lot of, I mean, I'm gonna pick on myself, obviously, because that's about the only experience I have, but I feel like humanities are so so ignored and even just looked down on in France, when it's actually one of the things that made France so famous and so culturally interesting, like a lot of countries. And on top of that, teachers and teaching is something that's not very valued by society, and people have a lot of misconceptions about it. It's not a job that's well paid. You don't even get to choose most of the time where you're gonna live and where you're gonna teach. It's a tiring, difficult job. And it's like, on top of that, you have to prove so much in ways that are sometimes very absurd and irrelevant, and just irrelevant, not doing anything to say if you're a good teacher or not. And that's really depressing when it's something you really want to do, when it's your dream, and when it's also just what you need to do in order to survive, to get money to pay the bills. And it's also just, as I said, really depressing, because your self-worth and the opinion that you have of yourself, it really is crushed. Honestly, that's how I feel about it, at least. So I kind of wanted to talk about it with you guys, to kind of a raw emotion mixed with what Friends is really like, and also what my life has been like, I suppose. And I wanted to talk about it with you, to tell you how I've been feeling, to tell you why I am so focused on that and why I keep talking about it. Because no, France is not like the US or the UK or even Belgium or anything, when you can get a PhD or when you can start teaching with only the master's and the PhD and what else. It is very difficult and very different in France, and very absurd and unfair in my opinion. And it's such a difficult thing to be stuck into a system that you don't agree with, but at the same time there's really nothing you can do about it, especially if you're outside of it. So it is a very just a very stressful and unpleasant situation, and I hope you guys understand why I've been so focused on that, why I haven't been uploading a lot. And yeah, I wanted to share it with you. And I also just want to say, I've said it before, but thank you to all of you guys for your support, your messages, your comments. It really warms my heart so much. And I also wanted to thank you for your financial support, for those of you who are supporting me on Patreon, because quite frankly, if I didn't have YouTube now and if I didn't have Patreon, I would not be able to pay my rent, my bills, my food by myself. And that's such a sad thing to say when you have 2 masters, when you have a job, but that's the reality. So I really wanted to thank you guys so very much for that. Just €1 or $1 for you maybe, but for me it really makes a big difference. And maybe just a comment for you, but at the end, when I receive your lovely and kind and just so benevolent message or comment, it really makes it a lot easier for me to go by and live my day and go through the day. So thank you so much, guys. I hope you are having a wonderful time. Let me know if you can relate to this in any way with your studies or your job or anything. Let me know if you're a teacher, or if you think of if you've thought about teaching and what it's like in your country. And I'll talk to you soon.